Hello David, this is your 220 carburetor that I've taken apart, and I'll let you know what I found. Primarily I believe the leakage, my co-worker and I believe the leakage was actually coming from this, here, not on camera, okay, it was coming from the accelerator pump diaphragm. Because this lower right screw is not really tight all the way, and this cover was not anywhere close to flat. This cover is right above the engine. It gets pretty warm and made out of pot metal, and it starts to tweak a little bit, flex. So what I've done is, you might be able to see how shiny it is. Well, all these have been dressed down to where they're just as smooth as glass, and hopefully the leakage will be eliminated. I've also, on this check valve right here, I put a screen on here for you that wasn't there, and that helps catch grit before it goes into the accelerator pump discharge nozzles, which are right here. If you ever have any trouble with it idling, this is the idle jet, G50 idle jet, and this has a very teeny hole on the end of it, and that easily gets clogged with grit. So I always recommend you have an extra fuel filter in place, in line with this carburetor. This part has been dressed down as well, so it's optically and just laser flat. Same with this surface here, and this is the surface that you were saying is where it was leaking from. But as I say, these two just fit right together without a gasket, and you can see the gasket that was in there was nicely done, but it was indeed a homemade gasket, and that's because no gasket goes there. I'm waiting for a new gasket to come in from Mercedes. What else? Also, this mounting surface here, you can see, is now dressed down in flat. This was not as critical as up here. I also got in here and polished up the choke plunger in here. Another thing I did was installed a new ball, ball for your throttle linkage. This one here is just like almost worn out to the point where I can't imagine he was even going to operate. So you got a new ball here, and I'm going to also send you a new socket to snap in place. What else? Adjusting the idle adjusting screws. Idle mixture. I'm sorry, this is the idle mixture screw, and this screw goes in, and you snug it down, and then you back it off and get your initial adjustment. Now, what was interesting is that ordinarily what you do, you screw it down, and you don't even have to use a screwdriver, except it's tough to get your fingers in there sometimes, but you screw it down until it stops. You don't jam it down there and squeeze on it and just tighten it as hard as you can, because that doesn't accomplish anything except ruin the hole inside here. All you want to do is get to a starting point, and then you back it out. According to the factory book, you back it out one turn. Yours was backed out 2.5 turns, I believe. That was, and if that's where your car is going to run, well, that's fine, but go ahead and run it at that point. But according to the workshop manual, okay, rereading here number 20, idling regulation. Number 20, turn idle adjusting screw in through half a rotation. I don't know what that means. Anyway, you bottom them out. Then turn both idle mixture adjusting screws all the way in, which is what I just said, and after this, turn them out one rotation. Run engine until operating temperature is reached. Now turn idling mixture adjusting screws evenly in or out as required until maximum number of revolutions is reached and engine runs smoothly. That's all you do to adjust the engine on adjust the carburetors on this engine. You're going to screw these things in and out once. So I'll set them to the one one revolution out, one turn out, and then you're just going to adjust these things in and out with the engine idling and warmed up until you get the best idle out of the engine. And you're just going to do it slowly. Another thing that I found that I did not like was this accelerator pump adjusting rod was screwed in like seriously really far. I mean, where the threads, where this was screwed down too far. It's not supposed to be screwed down that far, so I'm going to have to find out what's going on with that. But I think I'm going to get you the install new factory gas accelerator pump diaphragms, and instead of the black ones, and I think they'll maybe help things a little bit better. But anyway, this was adjusted way too far down for our purposes. The float bowl cover has been dressed down as well. You can see how nice and pretty it is. Not much you can do there. These guys right here, where's my screwdriver? Okay. These are air corrector jets, and this jet screws into a post that goes down into this little part right here that sticks across the throat. And what happens is, if this is stuck and you go wrenching on these things, that stand that's in there, it's pressed in place, and that stand can snap at some point. So I tell people not to screw on these things. As long as they process air, don't screw around with them. Alright, that is about as, I'm trying to think of anything else. I guess you already knew one of these threaded holes was one of these screw holes was stripped out, and so somebody put a bolt and a nut in there. But I'm going to leave that alone. No need to helicoil that. So that's it, and I'll assemble these things and get fluid in there. I use a combination of Marvel Mystery Oil and mineral oil, so I can see where the fluid is going and not going, and I use that for testing, and we'll see if anything leaks, and hopefully we'll get your carburetor taken care of. Thank you, sir.